I'm Gabby.
And I'm Shanna.
And we're 27 Travels.
We are a lesbian couple based in Brooklyn, New York. We are also married, we are wives, and this video is gonna be us telling our coming out stories. Because I feel like we haven't done it in a really long time. I think we did it once like in 2019 or 2020 or something.
So we have shared our coming out stories before, but like Shanna said, it was a long time ago, and I feel like coming out stories are something that is always relevant in your life when you are someone who has come out of the closet. And I think like even thinking of the fact that we did a video about this in 2019, like so much time has passed that I think your perspective on everything changes as you like live your life.
And I also think as queer people, we always say that like you're constantly coming out, you always have to come out. And you're always telling like different variations of the story depending on the situation or like who you're talking to, whatever. But I feel like, I'm not sure if we did like an actual like deep dive into our coming out stories when we told them the first time. So I think this time we're gonna get a little deeper.
Yeah.
We're gonna get into all the details.
We're gonna get into it, you guys. We're gonna get into it, okay? So this is gonna be like all of the details about our coming out stories with lots of good questions about like coming out and the impact of that on your mental health and your life and all of that, because I feel like those things are all parts of coming out.
And I think for both of us, like we've been out for like around like 15 or so years, like in our lives. We both kind of came out like around the same time in our life, even though we didn't know each other back then. But I think that, you know, we have new insights and new perspectives because it has been so long since we initially came out, so.
100%. And on top of that, as a couple, our coming out stories are very different because obviously we are different people and every person's coming out story is going to be completely and totally different. Sit down and relax and get ready to
grab a drink. We have our coffees somewhere. Mine's like over there. This one's mine, and I'm going to be drinking this when I'm filming Gabby behind the camera for sure.
I gotta go get mine, but sit down, relax, and get ready to unpack all of this with us.
I'm sitting like a gay person on the chair. I don't know if you can see.
I'm
sitting crisscross applesauce. I think you should just talk about like maybe when you started to realize that you might be gay.
So growing up, I think I always knew that I was different. I don't think that I was aware that I was queer or that I was gay or anything like that. But I always kind of had signs that like I wasn't interested in boys the way that other people were.
Okay, so I think if I'm thinking back to like my coming out story, I came out when I was like 19 years old, but I think there were always signs that I was gay or not the heteronormative norm, I guess you could say.
It would always be like someone talking about like, oh, do you like him? Do you have a crush on him? And people like having crushes and me kind of like pretending to have a crush. Like it always felt like that. It always felt like pretending to have a crush on someone or like trying really hard to have a crush on someone.
One thing about me is like I was very obsessed with like certain TV shows growing up. Like I was always on like message boards, and then when those got old I was on Twitter, and then when that got, you know, old I was on Tumblr. The first TV show that I remember being like extremely obsessed with was Charmed, and that show is just about like 3 gorgeous women being witches. So like that right there should be a sign. And I got obsessed with more TV shows after that, and I would notice that I would only be obsessed with like the women characters, and all my friends would be like, oh, like this, like Nathan on One Tree Hill is so hot, or blah 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 is so hot, and like I never thought that. I was just like really obsessed with like all the like female characters on those shows and like the actresses that played them and stuff. So I think that thinking back, that was like definitely a sign.
I think that as I got older, this became more and more of an issue. By the time I was like 16, you know, like people were dating other people and I was like trying to be interested but really not, and I would always just kind of like think of a reason why I didn't like another person, like either like it was something that was wrong with them, you know, like I always was like, I feel like looking back, I was trying to rationalize like not being attracted to men.
So at that point, like, did you think that you could be queer? Maybe you didn't realize that that wasn't even an option.
Like, I think the idea of being queer crossed my mind, but I was just like, no, not me. I'm not queer.
So you were like pushing it away.
I feel like mentally I was pushing away the fact that I knew deep down that I was queer. Like, I feel like for so many reasons over life, you kind of like try to explain things away.
And I think like one thing also to mention about my story is that I went to Catholic school my entire life. My family isn't really religious, but my mom was just like a Catholic school teacher, so she just always put us in Catholic school. And obviously being Christian and also being gay, those things kind of don't always mesh very well together. But like I said, my family wasn't religious, so it wasn't really like the religious part. It was just more of like things that were taught in school, or like comments that were said in school. You would just hear things about gay people or same-sex marriages and stuff, and it would just never be like a super positive thing, I guess.
Do you think that being in religious schools your whole life impacted your coming out story?
Yeah, I definitely think it impacted it, because I mean, when you go to Catholic school, you have like religion classes, and in those classes you're learning, you know, a lot about what's in the Bible. And a lot of times in those classes they would bring up, you know, like gay people or same-sex marriages or things like that, like in class, and then you would have discussions about that and talk about that. So that's a very interesting experience just to have, because like we would, you know, talk about that in like middle school and stuff, and then in high school and also in college. So I definitely think that like learning all that stuff when I was younger definitely like put thoughts in my head that maybe would not have been there otherwise. And then eventually I had to like kind of like unlearn all those things that I was taught about queer people and same-sex relationships and marriages and stuff.
We're talking about like maybe like 2008 or 2009, and I feel like I was just like, okay, maybe I'm gay, but like if I am, I'll figure that out one day. But like right now, like I just like always thought of all these reasons why not. Like either like the boy was gross, or like they didn't answer me enough, or like they did something on a date that I didn't like, or like they tried to hold my hand and then I was like not into them anymore. Like that's something that happened to me a lot. Like I would go on a date with someone and they would like try to hold my hand or do something very normal, and I would be like disgusted. Like I would be like, I can't be with them anymore, they're too clingy. Like literally, like I would always think of a reason why I didn't like them other than the fact that I was gay.
So at like what age do you remember like maybe coming to terms with those feelings?
So I think that when I kind of hit college, I was like really hyper aware that I was probably gay. And I started like looking into that more myself. But like I still wasn't at the point where I was like, oh, I'm ready to come out. Like I felt like I needed to test the waters. Like so college for me was definitely the point where I was like, in my own head, not to anyone else, I was like, I'm definitely gay. But like, I don't know, I need to find out. Like I need to like kiss a girl and then I'll know if I'm gay.
But then when I got to college, which I also went to a Catholic college, I distinctly remember being in my Christian marriage class and learning specifically about like same-sex relationships in that class. And I remember my teacher saying like in the Bible, like God sees like heterosexual marriages as like an A+, and then sees like same-sex marriages as like a B-. So I think kind of like in a Christian way, it was actually, she could have said it like much worse, but I think she was just trying to say that like, you know, it's not that like God hates same-sex couples per se, it's just more that like they're just not as up to par in his eyes as, you know, straight relationships and stuff. And I remember like that really like hitting me hard, and I was just like, why is this hitting me so hard? Like why do I care so much about this? And I just remember like having thoughts in my head thinking like, oh, you know, like if I'm gay then I'll just do this. If I feel like I, you know, really love women, then I'll just like hide it and whatever, and like all this stuff. And I was just having all these like crazy thoughts. And I was like, and then I thought about it, I'm like, why am I having all these thoughts? Like this was like before like the thought of like being gay or being a lesbian ever crossed my mind at all. I just remember like having all these like kind of weird thoughts about that, and then me being like, why am I having those thoughts?
So my college was an art school, and it was a lot smaller than my high school, which was like a public high school with like thousands of people. And in the high school situation, I still felt like I was like coming to terms with being queer, but by the time I got into college and I was in art school, it was very like openly queer, and I feel like I was able to see so much representation of other kinds of queer people like in my college that it really made me quickly be like, oh, maybe this is me and maybe that's fine. College really helped me kind of like come to terms with that, because I just saw so much representation, and I slowly was like, I think this is me and that's fine. And it made me also like really willing to explore that. Like I made friends who were like all different kinds of sexualities, and I was like, let's go out, let's do this. And that just made me quickly like come to terms with being queer. So basically you had never considered that you were gay before, but like hearing this made you be like, am I gay?
Yeah, I think so. Like I grew up in the suburbs like of Long Island, so it's, you know, you are surrounded by some queer media, at least back when I was growing up. Like there was like some queer media, there was some queer representation on TV. I did know some queer people. It wasn't really as, you know, common as it is now. So I think that like all the queer people that I did see on TV or like that I did know in real life just like didn't look like me or dress like me or act like me. So I think the thought like never crossed my mind until I was in that Christian marriage class.
So basically Shanna's Christian marriage class made her even more gay.
Thank you, God. So when was the first time that you had like a queer experience out and about in the world?
So like I said, I became friends with all kinds of different people in college, and I at the time still was not sure that I was a lesbian. Like I would say back then that I was bisexual, so like meeting new people in college, instead of saying I was straight, I would say that I was bisexual, because it kind of felt like like I wasn't sure, and it felt like an opening to be able to like be part of like a queer group of friends. So like I joined like the queer culture club, and I was on like different dating apps like Tinder, and I put myself as bisexual on those. So my first real queer experience was like meeting someone on one of those apps and like going on a date with them. And when we kissed, I was like, oh my God, I'm a lesbian. Like literally the minute we kissed, I was like, I am a lesbian. I am not bisexual. But I like remember like going on YouTube and looking up, you know, lesbians or lesbian couples or something. I don't remember exactly, but I found like a lot of like queer women YouTubers back then. So this is like 2009, 2010. And watching their videos, and that was the first time that I saw like queer women who looked like me. You know, I'm not like the most feminine person in the world, but I'm also not the most masculine presenting either. And I think that was the first time that I saw like, oh, you could look like me and be queer. And I think that was like, after watching like a bunch of those kinds of videos, I was like, okay, this for sure, I think I'm on the right path now. Like at that point, I was rationalizing that maybe I was not capable of feeling those things. Like maybe the things that people feel in movies, like attracted to another person, in love, butterflies, wanting to kiss them, wanting to hold hands. Like I had kind of rationalized at that point that maybe I just was not capable of feeling those things. Which is kind of sad looking back at it, because obviously I am. I just like had like heteronormity like forced on me by society, like being like, you have to be straight. And like, it made me think that I was weird for not feeling those things, which in reality was not true at all. I also just want to say that during this time period, it's like the only version of lesbian representation that you would see like in movies or TV shows would be like a very, very stereotypical like femme butch combo where you thought like, oh, like I have to look like that to be gay.
Yeah, like if you think, like everyone always says this, but I feel like Ellen and Portia were like really big back when, you know, Gabby and I were growing up, and it's like, if you didn't look like Ellen or you didn't look like Portia, like in your brain, you didn't think that like you could be queer because you didn't see what it's not like what it is now, like on social media where you see so many different types of queer people, so like very diverse, different kinds of queer people online. It was like the lesbian was always like the butt of the joke or something, and they always looked not like how I saw myself. It was very hard for me to picture myself being a lesbian because all the lesbians I saw didn't like resonate with me at all. During this time when you're figuring out like if you're queer, you're having all these like queer experiences, you're kissing a girl for the first time, like did you have any support from like friends or family or anything?
So in this time period, I did have some support, but like not a lot, because like I was not out at all. Like I was basically out to no one. I was out to one friend and whoever I was in college with. Like my friend Joanna, who is also part of my like meeting Shanna story, she was the one person that I was out to, and I had actually been out to her for a long time. Probably since I was 16, I had been more or less out to her because I had like expressed that a lot of feelings, like a lot of like, I don't really like guys that way, and a lot of like, I had never said to her, I like actually think that I never really explicitly came out to her ever. Like I think that she just knew, and we just were like really honest about things. And I think at this point when I kissed a girl for the first time, like I told her, and she was just like, oh my God, I knew it, finally. Like she just like, we never had a conversation about it. It was just like, she just supported me and that was it. And I felt really supported in that. And then with my college friends, they just always knew me as being bisexual or a lesbian. They never knew like straight Gabby. Like that was something with college that I was able to do, just like kind of never have to come out, because I just already was like, oh, this is what I am. I don't know if this happened for you, but I feel like it's like once you realize that, then everything about your life starts to make sense, and you start to be like, oh my God, all of these things make sense. Like,
yeah.
Was it like that for you?
Yeah, like I think that then that's when I was like, you know, thinking back to like, oh yeah, like I'm obsessed with all of these like, you know, actresses or like female characters in TV shows and movies, and like, you know, things like that. Like you start seeing all these signs like, oh, that's why I never wanted to like, you know, have an actual boyfriend, or, you know, things like that. So I think it definitely made me feel better about all that stuff. But also I was like, obviously back then I was really scared to tell anyone. Like, how was your family about all of this? Like, were they accepting? Were you worried that they weren't going to be accepting? Like, what was your thought process on like, you know, figuring all this out and like, you know, eventually then telling your family?
So I was terrified. Like I didn't know if they would be accepting or not. I thought that maybe they would be accepting, but I was absolutely terrified to tell them, because I think just like coming out in general, you're really afraid to like let someone know a different side of yourself, and there's a real fear in being rejected. by the people that you care about when you come out. And I definitely had that fear with my family. Like, everyone in my family is like a jokester. They make like little jokes, and I think at this time period, I was afraid that some of those jokes meant that they would not be accepting of me, or they would see me in a different light, or I don't know. It's just like, you're coming out of the closet, there's this feeling, like you kind of like take everything someone says about queer people and you like store it in your brain. So anything that I had ever heard my family say or close friends say that I thought might mean that they're not accepting, I was like worried about. So I was really afraid to come out.
I was really scared to tell anyone like in my life. I remember like I ordered like a lesbian book on Amazon. I was like so scared for it to come because I didn't want like my dad or my mom to like see the package, and I like ran downstairs to like grab it to make sure like when it got delivered. But yeah, I think I just like then at that point started, you know, watching more like lesbian YouTubers, like, you know, watching some more lesbian content. I remember watching like The Real L Word, because I think it was airing like in real time back then. Like I think the L Word, the show was like already over, but The Real L Word was like, it was like a reality show, and it followed like real like lesbians in like LA. And then when I was watching that show, I was like, okay, yeah, I think I'm starting to get the sense that I'm queer. But I then needed to tell people in my real life about it. At least that's what I felt like I had to do. So then when you like ended up like, you know, telling your family and stuff, like did anyone's reaction surprise you? Was anyone like did you think someone wasn't going to be supportive and was, or the opposite?
So in terms of my family, I only really ever came out to my dad and my brother in my opinion of like what coming out is. You know, like I feel like with my dad, I was really worried, but he was really accepting from the get-go, and like we had a heart-to-heart, and I honestly just like blurted it out because like I never like did a thing where I told everybody at once that I was gay. I just like, it was like weighing on me so heavily at this point. By the time I realized that I was like queer and I wanted to come out, it was weighing on me all the time. It was like all that I was thinking about was like, how do I tell this person? How do I tell this person? Is it gonna change my life? Like, what about everybody knowing? And I found that really difficult because I'm someone that gets really easily like depressed. So like it was a time period where I feel like I was really like scared and depressed and like worried about things. And to my dad, I remember that we were like walking into Panera once and I just blurted it out. Like literally just was like, I'm gay. Like the end. I couldn't like hold it in anymore. That's like how it felt to me. And he was like incredibly accepting, and then it was never weird about me being gay.
So the first person that I told was my best friend Katie. We were really, really close back in the day. I mean, we're still close now, but like I used to essentially like live at her house. Like her mom calls me like their third daughter. Like I was just there all the time, so I felt like very comfortable like telling her, and she was like super supportive about it. She was like, you know, really there for me and like really supportive in that way. And I think that like that was really helpful to me because like I felt like if I could just tell like one person, then I felt, you know, better about it. And then eventually, I think around the same time, so this was like when I'm like 19, I think I wanted to tell my mom because I knew that my mom would, even if she didn't accept it or understand it, I knew that she would still, you know, not treat me any different and still love me either way. I was a little scared to tell other people in my family because I didn't know how they were gonna react. But I knew that like if I could tell my mom that like even if she didn't like 100% support it, she would like, you know, try and be okay with it kind of thing. So I told my mom also, and it was really hard. I remember like being like sitting on the couch like next to her and just sitting there for like 30 minutes like not saying anything, and her being like, do you need something? And I was like, no, I'm fine, I'm fine. But then eventually I just said like, Mom, like I think I'm gay. And like she was like, yeah, like, you know, I kind of figured that. Like I think by the time like I was 19, like not having any interest in boys, she was kind of like already thinking that in her head. And I think she said something like, you know, like I love you no matter what, like I'll support you no matter what kind of thing. But like that was kind of like the end of the conversation. My family's not really good at like having conversations, I would say. So I think for me, that made me feel better that like, one, that she said that she still loved me, and like two, that she, I mean, if she kind of knew, I was like, okay, then I feel like other people in my family also kind of know. But I didn't tell the rest of my family until like much later on, actually until me and Gabby had started dating, which was like 3 or 4 years later.
Then with my brother, it was a similar thing. I just like was like, now's the time I have to tell him, and I did tell him, and he was accepting. I do think though that he was upset that I hadn't come out to him first, which is a whole different thing. I don't think people understand sometimes how hard it is to come out. Like, you're not just thinking like, who am I gonna tell first? How do I wanna do this? Like, I think it's about you and your own inner feelings. And I am lucky that like my family did accept me when I came out, and everybody else over time just found out that I was gay. It wasn't like I like came out to them specifically.
After I told my mom and I told some of my friends from home, I didn't like really tell anyone else until I had like moved out of my parents' house. And then I didn't actually tell the rest of my family until Gabby and I started dating. So at that point I was like 23 years old, I think, or 24. So it was like maybe like 5 years later. But I personally just felt like I thought my family would understand it more if I had a partner, because I thought that like in my head, I don't know if they would have reacted like this, but in my head, I thought that like if I had told them that I was gay without like having a partner, they might have just said, oh, you know, maybe it's just a phase, or maybe, you know, you just think that, but that's not really true. I'm like, I didn't really want to hear that kind of stuff, even though I don't even know if they would have said that. But in my head, I thought like, oh, well, if I have a partner and they see that it's serious and that it's real, like they'll take it more seriously. So I waited until I had a pretty serious partner, which was Gabby. Gabby's my first serious relationship. And then I felt comfortable telling the rest of my family. I was also excited to tell them because like Gabby and I were dating, and like we were really happy, we were really excited. And like I said, my family's really politically conservative, so I was really worried about telling them. Like, I wouldn't say that like for like my grandparents and my dad, I wouldn't say that they like reacted the best at first. Like, I think they definitely said some things that were hurtful to me, but I think now we've been together for almost 10 years. They've come a really long way since then. And I do think that like over time they, you know, are more understanding of it and more supportive than they were when I like initially told them. And I was really scared to tell my brother too, because my brother also had made some jokes in the past that I, you know, thought were like could have been like homophobic and stuff, but I actually didn't even tell my brother. He saw a picture of Gabby and me on Snapchat and he was like, does mom know about your quote unquote friend? And I was like, yeah, mom knows. I'm like, sorry, I never told you. Like, I just thought that like, you know, you wouldn't accept it, or like you would be weird about it. And then he was like, no, like I totally accept it. He's like, you do you, like I don't care. And he has been really amazing for like the straight cis white guy. I think he's done like a really good job of it, and like he even comments on mine and Gabby's TikTok sometimes. Or likes them. I don't know if he comments, but he likes them.
He's a lurker.
He's a lurker. So I feel like he handled it like so much better than I thought he was going to. Which made me really happy because I was really nervous to tell my brother about that. And like nowadays, like me and Gabby and like my brother and his wife are like, you know, like we always have fun together. We have like good times. We're always like talking and stuff. So it makes me feel good that we can like have that relationship. But yeah, I was really scared to tell him, and I actually never did. He found out because I was posting on Snapchat. Do you feel like your life changed at all since you came out, or like after you came out? Like, did anything change, or did you like mentally, or just in, you know, people around you in your life, anything like that?
Oh, my life completely changed when I came out of the closet. It was like night and day, because prior to coming out, I was, like I was saying, really depressed, like really upset. I had a lot of anxiety. Like, I would have such bad anxiety that if I was going to hang out with friends, sometimes I would like cancel because I would be so anxious that I couldn't even like get out of my room to go see them. But once I came out of the closet, it was like the polar opposite experience. I was like just excited to like live my life. I felt like free. Like, I had felt really trapped and I felt really free. I don't know how to explain it, but it just like, it felt like a totally different life that I was living. I felt so much happier, so much more positive, and I felt like I could actually be myself with the people I cared about. And I mean, I did, when I came out to my friends, I did have a few people who are no longer my friends because they were not accepting. I mean, luckily it wasn't like my closest friends. It was like some people like kind of on the outskirts that like could not accept it. But at that point I felt like I was living my truth, and it didn't really hurt me as bad as you think it would that those people didn't accept me. Like, even though my fear was always people not accepting me, when it did happen to me, I actually was like, I'm better off. Like, that's what it felt like, because I felt like I could finally be myself and I could finally be happy. After I told my mom and I told some of my friends from home, I didn't like really tell anyone else until I had like moved out of my parents' house. So when I finished college, I basically moved in with one of my good friends from home and like his roommates at the time. And by that point I was like 21, 22, and I was able to like actually like go out into the world and have queer experiences. So I would go to Cubbyhole a lot, which is the lesbian bar where Gabby and I met, but I would go there a lot. I also go to like Stonewall and like Henrietta Hudson's and stuff. And I think that was kind of the point where I was like, no, I know for sure that I'm gay. Like,
the second that I kissed a girl and I finally felt butterflies, I finally like understood what everyone was talking about in the movies when they say you get butterflies. That never happened to me before. Finally, when I kissed a girl, I was like, yes, okay, this is real. I know for sure I'm a lesbian. I'm not interested in men. This is what I am now. All that kind of stuff. But yeah, it really took me until I was like able to like move out of my parents' house, like have those like queer experiences to be able to like feel really confident in who I was. I think before that I knew I was a lesbian, but I wasn't as confident in it as I was, you know, when I got a little bit older and could have those experiences. Like, is there anything you would tell your younger self, like being like on the other side of it?
Yeah, if I could talk to my younger self, I would just say, like, honestly, this sounds so cheesy, but I would just say, like, be yourself, because I feel like I was hiding it for so long. Like, looking back now, I see so many signs that I was queer that I was just like running away from. Like, I could look back to being like 9 years old and see the signs that I was gay. Like, I just think that like I couldn't understand that back then.
I feel like I would probably tell my younger self to maybe like trust your instincts more, because I think that there were probably signs really early on, but I also am like, when we were growing up, there just wasn't as much representation. Even if I like trusted my instincts, I don't even know if like I would have known that I was gay, just because like the culture was just so different back then. But I think that like trusting your instincts like would have helped me maybe like be more confident in myself, be more comfortable with myself, and like, you know, maybe just like made me feel less, you know, nervous or scared or whatever, just because there were definitely signs that I was gay. But I think I just maybe pushed them aside or didn't trust what I was feeling, because I wasn't sure if my instincts were right, but they were.
And on top of that, like, the world tells you that you shouldn't be. So all of those things really made me feel like I could not come out and that I could not understand that side of myself. But like, looking back, like, my life completely changed the minute I came out, like, for the better, and I've never been happier. And I cannot imagine still being trapped in not being able to be my true self. Like, I feel like I was so depressed, and there were so many issues that I had that like would have just been solved by being honest with myself and being honest with people around me, even though that was like the scariest thing to do. So if I could talk to my younger self, I would just say that like, you're perfect the way you are, everything will work out, and just like be yourself.
Last question, tell me like one like really memorable experience from like, you know, a time when like after you came out and you were being yourself out in the world. Like, could be funny, could be, I don't know, anything.
Like a good experience
or
a
like,
bad experience?
Yeah, like I mean, either.
Can I say two that are super memorable?
Yeah.
One's a bad experience, but it's also funny. And the other is a good experience. The bad experience is that I had a friend that I came out to, and he started crying because he had thought that I was in love with him for like our whole friendship, and that I just like, I guess like he was really upset to learn that I was not in any way in love with him. And looking back on this, it's really funny, but the actual experience was really, really bad. Like, it was like traumatizing. But after that, we never talked again, and everybody's happy in their lives. So I feel like that's one memorable experience of coming out, because that was like a coming out where like the worst case scenario happened and I was fine after. And other memorable experiences, I feel like just around the time period where I came out, I had this really amazing group of friends that like, we were all queer, and we would just go out to like Stonewall and dance all night and like make friends with random people. And I feel like that was a really important time for me, just like because I felt like so free, like I could be myself, and like I made so many like queer friends in that time period. And it was just something that was so special, because it just felt like, you know, when you feel like you're truly free and you can just go be yourselves, and you're doing that like every single night. So that was just a really fun time for me. So I think just like being in New York and like being a New Yorker and going out to all the like New York queer bars with all of my friends that were like in the same period of life as me was something that was really special. What advice would you give other queer people that are not sure about their identities?
I feel like if you're not sure about your identity, number one, that is okay. You don't need to be sure about your identity to be a member of the queer community. I think there are so many queer people that go through different stages of figuring out themselves, figuring out your sexuality, figuring out your gender identity, all that stuff. And I don't think you need to have all the answers. And if you change, if you like, you know, experience life and you thought you were one thing and now you realize you're another thing, like all that's okay. I don't think you need to have it all figured out. And I think that's the best advice that like I could give, because I think there's so many labels out there, and I think people feel like they need to like fit into the label or fit into the box and do things a certain way, because that's what you've seen other people do, but you don't have to do any of that. You can carve your own path, you can be who you want to be, you can go through you can change your mind, you can say you're one thing and then become another thing, you can think that you're cis and then you're trans, and like everything is totally fine. You don't have to go through any progressions that anyone else did. You just gotta be yourself. Okay, so that was the end of our coming out stories video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you learned a little bit more about us, and maybe hopefully we gave you like some insights into like ourselves as human beings, but also like, you know, as a couple, and just like our journey.
Yeah, also what it's like to actually come out. Like, I feel like this was something that before I had come out, I watched a lot of like, I guess like, I wouldn't call it content back then, but now I would call it content. Like content about other people who'd come out and what their experience was, because before coming out of the closet, you're always thinking like, what is it gonna be like? How are people gonna react? All of these different things. But so I hope that in any way this video could have helped you if you're someone living that experience right now.
Yeah, and I think just like being representation and like hearing other people's coming out stories kind of helps you be okay with yours. And I feel like no matter how many times we watch other people's coming out stories, I just love watching them, because I feel like people are sharing like very vulnerable parts of themselves with you, and then you just feel like you know them better, you're closer to them, and it makes you feel better about your own coming out stories. And if you're not a queer person, you're still watching this video, I still think it's good for you to understand things that queer people go through in their lives.
Exactly. It's good to have perspective if you're an ally. And as queer people, I think it's all about community. So I think hearing each other's stories, no matter how different they are, just creates a better sense of community and understanding, and that is the most important thing. We all need to be here for each other.
So thank you all so much for watching. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this or more videos of our travels together, and we will see you soon with another video. Bye!